Welcome to the Crown Score podcast, virtually alongside Reggie Walker. I am Kevin Stewart. Reggie, this is the 6-month anniversary of this podcast. 6 months to the day since we released our first episode, if you will. Can you believe it? We've been doing this for 6 months already?
No, I can't. I think the coolest part, man, I don't think you and I haven't really delved into this, but you and I worked together for a long time at ESPN, and we worked on some projects together, and we worked on different projects, right, separate from each other. Whether it was you doing some baseball stuff, me doing game day stuff, NFL packages, all different things. And we always had a lot of fun just kind of getting off work and going somewhere and having a pop or two.
What are the many Bristol locals? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And just kind of talking ball outside of, the norms of what we dealt with at work. I think obviously you're a big hockey guy, and honestly, I don't know. I'm not a big hockey guy, right? It's not a sport I grew up around.
It's not for everybody. Not everybody is.
Right. But I had a chance I learned a lot about hockey talking to you. And we've talked about so many different things over the years in different sports and different scenarios and situations. And even what our opinions were, right, of how maybe we felt the coverage from us, the company we worked for at the time, was. And so I think it's been really fun for us to kind of take something that was very much informal and very much just kind of random discussions over the years and turn it into a forum to give to the people. And so, it's one of those things that I kind of laugh about it now. And I'm like 6 months later that we've actually been doing this. It's like this thing kind of started like more than a decade ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I started there 15 years ago. And it's funny you say you learned from me. I learned from you. I remember the first real highlight meeting that we would have. And for those who don't know, we would have highlight meetings before every night. If you were assigned a game, you had to cut a highlight from it. What's your plan going into it? Which would usually, die in a fire anyway, because something would blow up that you weren't playing for. And you were rambling off about Thabocephalosha, and you didn't have any notes in front of you. I'm like, who is this guy? Who is this hotshot going off in a meeting like he knows everything? And here we are.
Which, by the way, shout out to Thabo. Had a pretty good career. I think he's got a lawsuit or something going on with the league and some different stuff, or maybe a police department. Something happened. I think he got hurt and basically hasn't played much, if at all, since.
All right, shout out Thabo. So we've been doing this for 6 months. We haven't had a Panthers game, and we've been waiting 2 weeks from the NFL preseason. I mean, every NFL team had played a game besides the Colts and the Panthers. I mean, Dallas and Pittsburgh played twice, but we finally had a game yesterday. And before we get into that, Matt Rule, before the game, I think a day or two before the game, said they were going to play the starters after a couple joint practices with the Colts. My hunch is that, he saw what he needed to see and he didn't want to risk injury. I mean, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, once you get to the point to where, you've kind of gone full bore, 60, I think he said they wanted to get around 65 live snaps per group, per, first team, second team, yada, yada, yada group, particularly his first teamers in those two practices. Once you get to that point, that's about what you get in an NFL football game. You don't necessarily need to try to get 130 between those two groups, right? Or anywhere over the, once you get up over 85, 90, what do you need those for? What are those extra 15 or 20 maybe, right? If let's just say they would have let the starters play 2 drives, what's that extra 15 plays really going to show you? The other piece of it is, you don't want to get guys beat up, right? Because guys have kind of been banging on each other, kind of being full speed really for a couple of days in a row. So you do that and you kind of have to look at it and you say, there's a little bit of a wear and tear on the body question as well. And I know some people probably right now are listening to us and listening to me say this and they're going, well, what about the dudes that did play on Sunday? Those dudes are trying to get a job.
Right.
So they just gonna have to figure it out and they'll be all right. But the guys that know they have a job by and large, those are not the guys that you need to put through that much physical full speed contact for several days in a row. You just don't need it.
Yeah. And I understand the fans wanting to see, their players, their starters get reps on television or in person. But I think it was a smart move by Coach Rule. I mean, especially after hearing the reports that things got so chippy in those 2 joint practices. I think after day 1, Matt Rule tried to address the team to not get beat up so much. And I think I heard Shaq Thompson, among others, say, "Coach, we got this," and then they kind of punched Indianapolis back in the mouth on Friday.
Yeah, and the other piece of that, when you talk about getting chippy, look, guys in the NFL know, you can talk a little trash. Maybe every now and then it gets escalated to the point to where a couple punches are thrown. But generally speaking, guys are really cognizant of not trying to hurt guys for real and take food out of their mouths, right? Or take plates off the table,
but they're competitors at the same time.
But they're also competitors. And when they get chippy over a couple of days, you might get a late hit here or there that could cost a guy some time. So I think it was smart by both coaching staffs to do what they did and kind of pull back the reins. And by and large, the Colts, we didn't see any starters from the Colts either. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, there was no Jonathan Taylor, among others on the Colts. So it's probably a smart move by both Frank Reich and Matt Rule. But let's talk the actual game. There was some ugliness, but it was the first preseason game. Carolina had 10 penalties. I mean, a lot of false starts. Joey Sly looked a little shaky. I mean, he's looked a little shaky at times in his short tenure here in Carolina. There were some flashes, though, and there were two plays that stuck out to me from PJ Walker in the first half. It was that 80-yard pass to Terrace Marshall, or the 60-yard pass, I'm sorry, where he kind of scrambled and bought some time and found his receiver downfield, and then he did the same thing on the touchdown to Tommy Tremble. Last year that Detroit game, he threw 2 picks in the end zone, so it's good to see him find the guy in the right color jersey this time. But PJ Walker showed me some flashes yesterday that he might be able to take over the backup job for real.
Yeah, he did. One of the play you were talking about, the long pass to Marshall, I thought was good patience by him. I was watching the game with a friend of mine, and I don't even think PJ had gotten to a second step, and I yelled, "Check down, check down, check down," because it was there. It was wide open. And because of that, that corner started to slide up to look at Chuba Hubbard. The safety was late. PJ throws right in that hole, and that's where you get the long completion to Marshall. Now, I feel like I'm going to need him to get that all the way in the end zone next time.
Yeah,
I need a touchdown out of that. But I agree. And then the throw, I think the Trimble in the end zone was a phenomenal play, great patience, great athleticism. One thing I wonder, I don't know that ball was for Tommy Tremble. If you remember, you had one player, Tremble, going toward the sideline. Somebody else was on the back side of that going back the other way. I think that may have been where PJ was throwing the football. I'm not sure. So I'm not going to take anything away from him. But that was an interesting play on the scramble drill. And I think it's a good job by both receivers, right? Tremble, understanding his quarterback is moving away from him. So he got himself back in the line of sight. So that's really good recognition by a young player on a scramble drill. And then vice versa, the other receiver, now I'm drawing a blank on who that was, understanding that PJ Walker is coming toward the sideline where he is, you work back the other way so you can flash across the quarterback. So good job by two different players, obviously, and the quarterback dealing with the scramble drill. So I thought that was a good job on that particular play. Really with the recognition from those players, and then PJ Walker staying patient and understanding what to do with the football and making the proper throw.
No relation, right, PJ?
No relation.
Bill Voth actually tweeted about that touchdown because he had a video angle from the back of the end zone on the ground. I'm drawing a blank on who the receiver was too. I don't think it was Shi Smith, but he said that receiver actually stepped out of bounds. So if he caught it, it wouldn't have counted.
Even better.
But speaking of Shi Smith, he had that one catch yesterday where he kind of went up and hit the ball. He showed some flashes last year at South Carolina, and I think he could be a potential nice deep roster threat, because you're going to have your big three in DJ Moore and Robbie and Terrace, and then you have David Moore. But, one of those guys goes down, it'd be nice to see if you could plug and play Shi Smith and see if he can give you a couple catches in a big game.
Yeah, I think if I'm Shi Smith, I'm going to the coaching staff and I'm asking them, hey, can I, in a situation like that, instead of David Moore, can I get back there and return punts? The more you can do, right, as a player, David Moore is going to make this football team. He's going to be guy that is working opposite the tight end over the middle of the field to move the chains and create first downs for this offense. And then that can allow, not going to say that's exactly what's going to happen, but that will certainly allow for more opportunities for Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore to stretch the field vertically when you've got a guy like David Moore, and then obviously Dan Arnold at the tight end position, kind of working those intermediate and over the middle of the field, occupying those safeties in theory. So if you're a guy like Shi Smith, You got to figure out if I'm going to be the fourth or fifth, or if I'm going to convince them to carry a sixth receiver, I better be able to do more than just run routes and catch the football. Maybe I can catch some punts. Maybe I can catch some kickoffs. Maybe I can be a really good blocker in kickoff return situations, those types of things. You got to find some additional things that you can do to make yourself more valuable to this roster. But you're right. I do think he showed some flashes, showed some things yesterday that I was pretty happy with for a young player. Now, again, does that mean he's going to make the team? No. I mean, we don't know obviously what this roster is going to look like. I think the thing that's interesting is they have until today, at 4:00 to get the roster down to 85.
Mm-hmm.
And then 1 week from today, next Tuesday, they have to get the roster down to 80. And then eventually by July 31st, they have to get that roster down to the 53. So going to be interesting to watch how that works out and what they decide to do. And I will say this, moving forward, I think I'd like to see, I'm convinced that PJ Walker can do what he can do, and be a decent backup for this franchise and for this team. At this point, you've got to do one of two things with Will Grier. You've either got to go ahead and cut bait now, or you give him an opportunity to play with the twos and showcase himself and see if you can turn him into a guy that's worth trading, or that will allow you to figure out if you're going to carry three quarterbacks or just two. But you got to figure that out pretty quickly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Grier. And they traded up to get him a couple of years ago in the draft. Did they not?
They did.
Yeah, and it hasn't really – I mean, he didn't really see any live action last year. There was no preseason. He didn't – in that game against Detroit, when we didn't know who was going to start until about 12:45, they decided to go with Walker, and it worked out that day. And in the last game of the season, when they benched Teddy, they brought PJ in. So I don't know what the plan is for him. Matt Rule and his staff, these guys didn't take Grier. They were brought in a year after he was picked. So I think the next game, the next two preseason games are going to be really telling about what happens with Will Grier's future here in Carolina.
Well, not only from the Matt Rule standpoint, but Scott Fitter was not the GM when he was brought in here. And David Tepper was, for lack of a better term, he was barely the damn owner when Will Grier was brought in here. So you do the math on that. I mean, none of those guys that are in positions of decision-making, right, were here per se in full-fledged, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going mode. With the exception of obviously Mr. Tepper for a short period of time. None of the other two decision makers were even a thought at that particular time.
Right. I didn't really take too much out of yesterday's game because, as we've said, the starters didn't play, the backups played. But the two things that stuck out to me were Terrace Marshall looks like he is going to be the real deal.
Yep.
3 catches, 88 yards. He's got size, as you said. You would like to see a little more speed.
I need him to finish that play.
And one thing that stuck out to me, and we just talked about it before we taped, was a run by Benny LeMay, the former Charlotte 49er. He dragged a pile about 8 to 10 yards.
Yeah, he did.
And then kind of flexed on the guy that failed to bring him down, or did bring him down. I don't really remember. It was a very minor celebration, and they flagged him for taunting. And I know that's going to be the new rule this year, but I think by week 1, that's going to be a big hot topic on a Monday morning, when people are going to be we're done with this rule already.
Yeah, and I think especially in week 1, right? The first time the games mean something, every time a guy makes a play, he's going to feel good about it, because it's less about showing the other guy up, but more about, we're in the season. Like, let's go. And what I thought was interesting about that play, and I'll come back to the running back situation in Carolina in a minute, but what I thought was interesting in particular about that play was Benny LeMay eventually kind of tossed the football to the official and was walking back to the huddle as if he saw the flag, but it was as if it had nothing to do with him, which is what I think is very interesting, because he kind of felt like, obviously, whatever it was that he did wasn't that serious.
It wasn't.
And it wasn't. I agree. And so I thought that was just, to me, a kind of unnecessary, really, call that didn't need to be made in that particular point in time. And that's, to me, if that is taunting, I can't imagine what may happen with some of the guys who actually do things to where maybe they throw a football at a guy, or yell directly at a guy, or walk up into a guy's face. What are they going to get thrown out of the game? That was an awful, awful call.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the heat of the moment. You're competing. You're doing something that's going to help your teammates. You're doing something that's going to help yourself.
Guy's trying to get a job.
You're trying to get a job. I mean, I listen to Pat McAfee about this a lot, and he hates this new rule, and I don't blame him because I don't understand it. I mean, this is a sport where your emotions are jacked up, and you're not supposed to like get hyped about something. I mean, what if you catch a big touchdown in the closing minutes to put your team up in an important game? I mean, you're supposed to just like, okay, here you go. There's the ball, Mr. Referee, and just walk to the sideline. I don't think so.
No, it's a gladiator sport, man. And when you run over a dude, you're gonna feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I'm gonna need them to chill out and calm down with some of these calls because that was ridiculous.
All right, what do you want to say about the running backs?
Yeah, look, Chuba Hubbard. I ain't gonna let you off the hook either, Chuba. Like you got to finish that run too. I'm gonna need you to get that to the house. I'm just saying you're gonna play in the National Football League. You break out like that, you need to get that to the house. Now, with that being said, I thought it was a very good run, a physical run, a patient run by Chuba Hubbard. My other issue with that run is, Kev, it spoke to me from a sense of what we've seen really the last 3 years of when we've seen this team and this franchise, this organization really struggle to win games, and that's short yardage situations. Listen, to me, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 4th and inches, that's attitude. That's not about scheme. That's not about fooling anybody. That's lining up at the line of scrimmage as an offensive lineman or defensive lineman and dominating the person in front of you. And once again, in my opinion, and from what I saw on Sunday, this offensive line, granted, it was not the starters. I get that. But this group, again, not dominating at the point of attack in short yardage situations, that is a recipe to not win games in big spots. And that goes all the way back to, remember a couple of years ago with an attempt to win the game, I believe it was week 1 or week 2, and they tried to run wide and run all the way to the pylon to try to win a football game because they didn't have the confidence, in my opinion, from a coaching staff to win by going straight ahead up front and dominating the line of scrimmage. That is a signal to me that there's a chance for struggle. And so I hope that when the starters get a chance to play in some preseason and or regular season games, they can find a way to remedy those situations, because if not, I think this team is destined for some struggles again.
I remember that exact play you're talking about. It was week 2. It was 2 years ago, week 2, the Thursday night game against Tampa. I was there.
That's right.
And Cam Newton kind of, I don't even know what he did. He kind of motioned his way up toward like the right side of the offensive line, and it was a direct snap to Christian McCaffrey, and he almost got there. But yeah, you're right. But to your point, none of the starters were playing the offensive line, but we've had so many injuries on the offensive line in Carolina over the last few years that these guys are going to be important to that offensive line success. So they need to win at that point of attack.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to me, that's how I judge offensive lines, right? Obviously, pass protection is important, but can you get me a yard when I need a yard, right? And can you get me – I need the Leroy Horde yards, right? And I don't know if anybody remembers Leroy Horde. He used to play for the Browns, and Kev, you've heard me say this for years. Leroy Horde always used to say, if coach comes and tells me, hey, Leroy, I need a yard, I'll get you 3. If you need 3 yards, I'll get you 3. If you need 5 yards, I'll get you 3. Yeah. And basically what Leroy Horde is saying is, I can get you the tough 2 or 3 yards no matter what. You want me to get 5? That's not my job. I'm a big guy. I'm short yardage back. That's what I do. 1 yard, 3 yards, I'm going to get you those every single time, regardless of the situation. I need this offensive line to be able to look at the coaching staff and say, we need 1 yard, we need 2 yards, we need 3 yards on the ground. We will get those yards for whoever the running back is without this person having to make anybody miss. We can dominate the point of attack, move the line of scrimmage, push the pile, and get those 3 yards at minimum every time.
You know, as we sit here, we talk about this, I'm reminded of week 1 of last year against the Raiders, where it was a 4th and 1 situation. And the name's escaping me right now. The fullback, number 40, I forgot.
Alex Arma.
Yes. And then they gave the ball to him instead of giving the ball to McCaffrey, and he didn't get that yard, and that was the ball game right there. So yeah.
And you know, it's funny. I got into a couple of conversations with people about that at the time, and they were like, "How do you not give the ball to McCaffrey?" And my response is, while that is a fair question and a very fair assessment, Alex Arma got stuffed 3 yards deep in the backfield. Where the hell did you think McCaffrey was going? Run into the water bucket? At the end of the day, if you don't win the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter who has the football. Right. And that was my point. I wasn't saying that McCaffrey wasn't a better option. What I was saying is the fullback got stuffed 3 yards deep in the backfield, which would have meant let's just say he didn't get the ball and he was supposed to lead the way for McCaffrey. What is McCaffrey doing? Running into the back of his fullback because his fullback never got to the line of scrimmage. Again, would have been a bad situation.
Oh, you're 100% right. But the Panthers aren't the only team in Charlotte that's going through an experimental phase right now, if you will. The Hornets are in the middle of their summer league out in Vegas. It is summer league, and I know they're not playing against the real NBA players and everything, but no disrespect to the guys playing there now, but they're not going up against the superstars in the NBA. But in the few games that they've played so far, I know it's early. I don't want to be the overreaction guy, but I cannot believe James Bouknight fell to 11. This kid looks like he's going to be the real deal for this team, and it's be a great scoring option off the bench, playing behind Terry Rozier.
Yeah, yeah. The thing about Bouknight that I like is, he understands how to play basketball. And I think the best
He's fearless.
Yeah, he is. And to me, one of the best parts about his game is the fact that, in his time, he was at UConn for 2 years. And you know me, I'm a big reps. How many times did you do it kind of guy? And Bouknight's 20 years old, played at UConn for 2 years. And he's a guy that's been around the game a little bit longer. And the reason why that's such a big deal to me, Kev, is when you get to 20, 21 years old, particularly in basketball, you can always get better, but you know what kind of player you are. Mm-hmm. At 17, 18, even kind of 19, you don't know who you are, right? You don't know what kind of
unless you're LaMelo Ball.
Right. Sometimes you really don't know what kind of player you want to be. But when you get to that 20, 21-year-old range, you kind of know what your skill set is, what you're good at, what you're not good at, how to work on those things. And so that's what I like about Bouknight. And the other thing I like about Bouknight is this. Anytime he comes in the game, if you think about it, once you get to the regular season, he's either going to be coming in for Terry Rozier or LaMelo Ball. Mm-hmm. Okay? Which means the fans are going to expect less. So anytime he gives you a great play, anytime he knocks down a couple shots, anytime he gets streaky, and I'm just going to say this name because it's your boy, a la John Starks, anytime he gets streaky, it's going to be a positive for this team.
Unless it's game 6 of the 94 finals.
That's exactly right. And so look, is he going to have some times where maybe that shot's not going down or he's not able to turn the corner on every defender? Absolutely. He's a young player. That's going to happen. But I think he's in a good situation. He's coming here as a bigger guard, 6'4", 6'5", and he's just being asked to do one thing, put the ball in the basket. And then obviously you got to try to at least defend respectfully at your position. They're not asking him to create a bunch of shots for other people. They're not going to be asking him to lead the team in rebounding. They're going to ask him to put the ball in the basket and help this team score points when those guys are off the floor. And let's call it what it is. Player development is huge, and it's part of the process, and it's what you have to do with small market teams. And Kev, I'll just say this, and I know some people are going, well, yeah, but because I made the comment right last week is, Bouknight is an insurance policy. If he plays well, and they have to really look at whether or not they're going to pay Terry Rozier, that may be the situation where they say, we're not going to pay Terry a max deal at, $180 million or whatever the case may be at 30% of the salary cap. That can really be prohibitive for a small market organization.
Of course.
And for anybody that's saying, how the hell can you get rid of Terry Rozier? My response to you is, I hope you weren't the same damn person a couple of years ago that was calling him Scary Terry. Because if you were, then what's your problem now, right? Don't change your opinion on a guy because all of a sudden he's hit a couple of shots. He's still the same player. Is he probably a little bit better? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, sometimes we're ready to bury players for maybe the role they're put in certain situations or whatever the case may be, and or anoint them because of situations they're put in or whatever the case may be. I think Terry Rozier is a really good player. I think he's a valuable player to this organization. But I think they're going to have to make some decisions when it comes to his salary cap number at the end of this upcoming season. And I think that's why Bouknight has to be impactful for this team. If not, I think you'll see probably a situation where they may have to try to, if they really feel like they need to keep Rozier, that's where you may see a guy like Bouknight get shipped out and they try to get some relief there and get a lower cost player there if they're going to find a way to keep Terry Rozier. So I think those two guys are somewhat intertwined, and I'm not suggesting that I know what's going to happen either way, but that is going to be a factor when it comes to next offseason.
No doubt. And I don't know if you saw the third game of their summer league, but he had over 20 points. I don't have the stats in front of me. That's on me.
I mean,
but
do they keep stats for summer league?
Kidding. Well, Dutch Gately's got him in his press conferences, and he's reading off assists and everything.
Exactly.
But they have run him at the point a little bit here in the summer league. Yeah. But he did have that breakout game in the third game. He had over 20 points. And he said something in the press conference that really caught my ear. He said after game 2, Michael Jordan called him up, or he texted him. Either way, he reached out to him to give him a little confidence booster. And in the 4 years that I've been here in Charlotte, I haven't heard anything from that of Michael Jordan reaching out to his players. I mean, maybe he has, maybe they haven't said anything, but I thought that was pretty encouraging. I mean, the only thing I've seen from Michael Jordan really was that viral clip of him smacking Malik Monk upside the head during that one game because he ran onto the court for a celebration. But I find that very encouraging to hear that about MJ reaching out to his young rookie.
No, I think that's good. I think it's a sign for the young player, right? More than anything, that the boss man is paying attention and wants him to be successful. And I think that can give a young guy a vote of confidence, a little bit of boost in his focus, right? To continue to do the things he needs to do to get better. Obviously, this franchise feels like what James Borrego is doing from a player development standpoint is very, very important. And so you like to see that continue, because the issue for this team is in the next couple of years, there's a whole bunch of dudes that are going to have to get paid. And they're going to have to make some decisions. And when those decisions get made, it's not always, I'm going to tell the fans right now, it's not always going to be who they think is the best player right then. It's going to be who is the best player that creates the best value for me long-term, because that's the only way you can look at things sometimes as a small market, if you will, small market, right? I don't know.
Right.
And they base that on so many different things, but whatever.
Right.
As a small market franchise. And so I think that's something to keep an eye on, because Kev, you've seen it. You and I have talked about it. Some of these luxury tax bills, I mean, Golden State's paying like $180 million in luxury tax. Michael Jordan's not going to pay that. The money is not there.
He's got it, but
here's the reality. I'll tell anybody this at home. Anybody at home that's saying, well, why doesn't he should, blah, blah, blah. I need you to call me and then go buy whatever it is you want to buy, and then give me the same amount of money that you just bought, just because I want it. Go ahead and do that with your money. If you're okay with doing that with your money and just giving it to me, then you can say whatever you want about what Michael Jordan should do with his money. But I'm not going to tell Michael what to do with his money, because ain't nobody going to tell me what to do with my damn money.
You're not wrong. But I think that the other part of that is, even if they pay Terry, they're not ready to compete yet against Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta is going to be a problem. And the Knicks are going to be a problem. And like those top 5, and Miami's going to be a problem. I mean, that's 2 teams in your division right there, Atlanta, Miami, that you're going to have to deal with. And I don't think they're at that level yet. They showed signs of it last year. I mean, they were as high as number 4 seed in the East, but I don't think they're there yet.
No, I mean, the key is, look, at this point, let's do the math on this. The Panthers, here I go. The Hornets right now, in a lot of ways, are still the team that is forced to react to what Atlanta and Miami in their division are doing. Mm-hmm. When you become the team to beat, that's when everybody is reacting to what you have. For instance, you have to have guys right now that can keep Trae Young out of the lane. You have to have a guy right now that can deal with Jimmy Butler on both ends of the floor, period. When it gets to the point to where Miami is trying to figure out who the hell can we go get to slow down XYZ in Charlotte. Now, that guy, I think, in the future is going to be LaMelo Ball. When that starts to happen, that is where you have begun to take the reins of the division. And right now, the Hornets are still somewhat the team that has to react to what those couple of other teams in their division are doing versus those teams having to react to them. Now Orlando is reacting. They're just a mess, but they're kind of reacting to what the Hornets are doing because they're less obviously than the Hornets right now. So that's part of the equation that you have to think about. I remember a few years ago, and no one's going to like this comment, but I understand it. Remember when Michael Kidd-Gilchrist was drafted? You have to remember at that particular point in time, if memory serves, Smith was still in Atlanta. You're going to have somebody that can guard him. At the time, Washington, they still had, who was at the 3 there? I can't remember who that was, but they had a decent small forward. Orlando had Aaron Gordon, I believe, at the time. You had to have guys that could guard those players within your division and within your conference if you were going to go deep into the playoffs. They needed somebody to try to guard. Remember, Carmelo Anthony was with the Knicks at the time. You better figure out how to slow those high-level scores. Dwayne Wade was still in Miami. LeBron, I believe, was in Miami as well.
Yeah,
I think
so.
Around the end of that time frame. You got to have somebody that can guard those dudes. And if you can't, you're going to get hammered.
Yeah, you're right. Bouknight, I mean, he looks like he's going to be a great star on this team. He's shown that confidence. He's had the moments where he's been fearless late. I mean, on Saturday night, he had that layup where he could have given the Hornets the lead. He missed it. Excuse me. The next possession he had that he was dribbling, ball handling, and he lost it. But he seems like he's fearless with the ball in his hands. He plays with confidence. He says he plays with that New York swag, and he's already trying to win me over, talking about my home city and how, if you're not from New York, I get it because I'm from there.
Man, the kid's from Brooklyn, man. I mean, math.
We can
mention some of the great basketball players that have come out of Brooklyn, especially guards, and it starts with guys like Stephon Marbury, Kenny Anderson, those kinds of guys. Wow. Bouknight better have some swag if he's going to survive in that.
I mean, it's New York City. If you're from there, you kind of have it. I don't really think I do because I'm a middle-aged married father. But it's what it is. But I think him and LaMelo have a chance to be electric. I mean, we've seen some flashes of him. We've seen some flashes from LiAngelo Ball in the summer league, where I think the idea of him signing with this Hornets team, maybe ended up in Greensboro, I think it's a real possibility. But we also see something from Kai Jones, the 19th overall pick. He seems like he's got a lot of raw talent. He's a super dunker, obviously. But as you've alluded to on the show previously, the way James Borrego, develops talent, I think that he could be something that, as the season progresses, you could see more of his game kind of become more refined. I think we saw this at Miles Bridges a few years ago when he first came in the league. I think he was a 12th overall pick, another raw dunking talent. But, his game has grown so much defensive wise and shooting wise that I think Borrego and his staff could potentially get Jones to Miles's level.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, right, is developing him. Can he hit that outside shot, that 15 to 18-foot jump shot, maybe stretch him all the way out to the three-point line? I don't love forcing big guys to be able to shoot threes, but I realize that's what the game is now.
Yep.
Can he protect the rim, right? Is he going to bring the energy to run rim to rim, every single opportunity, particularly when you get out on the break? When you've got a guy like LaMelo Ball leading the break and maybe a guy like Gordon Hayward running to one wing, if Kai Jones is running down the middle of the floor, there are some really good options on that fast break to get buckets. So that's going to be key is to where his player development is. And again, it's going to go back to that point guard and whoever that ball handler is running the floor, even if in certain situations that could be Terry Rozier, obviously, could be James Bouknight. And so those are things to watch as well. But, looking at Kai Jones and what I like about him is, at least so far in Summer League, his relentless desire to attack the front of the rim. I got no issue with that. When you're willing to be that kind of a player, I think it bodes well. What do we hear all the time when, even the great players have those off games and then they come back the next night and have 50? What's the first thing they say? I just wanted to be aggressive. Well, Kai Jones, from what we've seen, he's already built that way.
Yeah.
And
he's aggressive.
Yeah, he's aggressive. And that's what we want. Right, because it's hard to score being passive in this league, and that's just the bottom line. And so, let's not forget about that. And Bouknight has generally been aggressive as well. And the more I keep thinking about what's in my brain, let me correct myself. I think I said Kenny Anderson. He is not from Brooklyn. He's from Queens, went to Malloy High School in Queens. So I had to correct myself on that and get
Maybe
my
you're thinking
mind
of
right.
Sebastian Telfair.
It's Sebastian Telfair. Yes. He went to Lincoln High School in Brooklyn as well. So a lot of Brooklyn, we talked about Marbury as well. So Bouknight with that Brooklyn pedigree. We've heard all the stories of playing ball in Brooklyn and Coney Island, all those different things. So we know where he comes from, and he's going to be willing to make plays, and he's going to do it with some flair at times, because that's what them boys from Brooklyn do. And so, you add all those things up, and I think the best thing that this team can do is try to play up and down next year, play with high tempo, and allow all these young athletes to get up and down the floor and give yourself a chance to get a lot more easy buckets.
If we're ever fortunate enough to get Bouknight on this show, which would be an amazing get for us,
I'm going to ask him to rank the top 5 point guards out of Brooklyn. I'm doing it.
He said he didn't play basketball until, late in his high school career because he was more of a baseball guy. And New York is a massive baseball town. So I have to know if it's Mets or Yankees, so I know what I'm dealing with here.
Well, you know what else is funny about that, Kev? Here's what I don't understand.
It's a very important question.
That's
Rich.
a very important question. The other thing that's interesting to me about that is New York is such a baseball city, but it's so damn crowded. Where the hell are baseball fields at?
I don't know.
Now, we're just in New York. I love New York. Don't get me wrong. I love New York, and I'm being facetious somewhat. But
baseball and basketball are the two sports. That's why you saw them. That's why you saw the Garden go nuts when they had those first two playoff games against Atlanta.
How about that? Yeah, I mean, good for the Garden. Good for New York. Look, man.
Miles Bridges even tweeted about it. He's like, that playoff atmosphere is different.
Kev, I tell you, man,
I would love to get that here at Spectrum.
And you and I have talked about this because over the year, I'm from Memphis. Whether it's the Pyramid or the old Mid-South Coliseum or the FedEx Forum now, University of Memphis basketball has always had that sound rocking. And I used to always say, man, I think this Madison Square Garden thing is overrated. I had a chance to go up there for when I was younger because I was being a hater. I was.
Everybody hates
to go up there for one of those classic that I think it was Coaches versus Cancer years ago. Take the bus down from work in Connecticut, and ride down and catch both games. And I got to say, man, the atmosphere, even for a couple of college basketball games early in November or early December, whatever it was, that didn't really mean a whole lot. The atmosphere in there was electric. So my opinion on MSG changed really, really quickly. So it's pretty cool to see and had a chance to run the guys in there. Like Derek Coleman was kind of just hanging out because Syracuse was in one of the games. But I had a chance to see Memphis play in there. And it was a really, really good time. I think I was the only person in the gym wearing Memphis blue. So it is what it is.
I don't want to keep harping on New York because this is not a New York podcast, but my first NBA game, I was 10 years old. It was 1994, the spring of 94. When the Knicks made that run to the finals against Houston. Thank you, Michael Jordan, for retiring briefly and giving the Knicks that short window. But the game went to overtime, and Derek Harper hit this 3-point shot with under 10 seconds left to give the Knicks the lead. And the whole building just kind of erupted. And I hadn't kind of been in that atmosphere before. Like the Yankees weren't really that good until that time growing up. And you just see the whole building just rise as one. And I said, oh, my goodness. I was 10 years old. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. It was a moment, and it's a moment that's going to stick with me forever.
Speaking of buildings rising as one like that, I can't wait to the days, and I think they're close to where the Hornets and it will never be as big, right? The old Charlotte Coliseum was humongous.
Right.
That place was massive. The arena now is not that big, and it doesn't seat as many people, but I'm looking forward to potentially this season coming up with the fans back in the arena, LaMelo Ball and Bouknight and Rozier throwing all kinds of crazy lobs, whether it's to Kai Jones or to Miles Bridges and Gordon Hayward, who, when he's right, he will dunk on anybody that gets in the way as well. I'm looking forward to seeing this arena here in Charlotte start to feel like what we know it can be in this city once again.
Yeah, it was a crime to not be able to see LaMelo in person last year. And I think there's a lot of hype building around this team right now. And I think people are going to be very anxious to get back into the building and see this Hornets group that's going to make a push for the playoffs, no doubt. Reg, 6 months of doing this, man. It's been fun. We've had a lot of great guests so far. Hopefully we'll continue to do more of that. Hopefully we'll continue to grow. I mean, we're on almost every podcast platform now. I'm waiting to hear back from a couple. But it's been fun, man. And it's been a privilege to do this with you.
Dude, it's been my pleasure, absolutely, to work with you, man. It's like I was saying earlier, it's crazy that, you know, we've basically been doing this without cameras and microphones for years. So now getting a chance to end up in the same city again, and do this again and do this formally now.
Okay.
It's been really cool. And shout out to our guests, man. We've had some great ones, whether it's been people like Abby Labar, Charles Arbuckle, Kevin Carter, Sam Purley, the list goes on and on. I know I'm missing some people.
Nick Carboni, Phil Orban, Mike Solarte.
Yeah, all of them. Charge it to my head, not my heart, because everybody's been great. And we look forward to having some of those people back around, obviously,
no doubt.
come back through, because they great insight. You know, you talk about people that have covered the teams in this city for a long time. You talk about people that have covered certain sports, whether it's this city or nationally, for a long time, giving us some additional perspective and conversations about the teams in this city and helping us grow Crown Score and give you guys, our listeners, our consistent listeners, subscribers, some fresh content, some fresh ideas, some fresh thoughts every single week. That's been really damn cool.
It's been fun, man. And then we'll have another Panthers game to talk about next week. Hopefully we get some more reps from the starters, which we'll definitely get. But yeah, we'll probably have some more Hornets Summer League to talk about. That's concluding this week. And before you know it, training camp is going to be opening up. The preseason schedule's out mid-October. I mean, we're 2 months away from the NBA season starting already. Oh man, I know the feeling. It's getting wild for me too. You know, I'm super busy, always doing stuff. So this Saturday alone, man, I think I'm going to spend more time in a football stadium than I need to in one day. Gardner Webb is going to have a team scrimmage, so I'm going to go out there and get some eyes on them Saturday morning, and then I'll come back, go to Panthers game Saturday night at the stadium. So it'll be busy watching a lot of football. But look, for the people at home, I have a mantra, man. If I'm gonna walk around and call myself an analyst, I'm going to make sure I'm showing up and watching things live and in person and giving you guys my perspective from that regard. I'm not going to talk about something I did not watch, and Kev's not going to allow me to talk about something that I'm not making sure I'm doing everything I can to be as knowledgeable about as possible. So the beginning of busyness is starting for me. I'm sure I'll go check out the Charlotte 49ers practice one day this week as well. And then obviously all my radio stuff going on also. So Kev, it's cranked up for me, my man. It's football season. It's here. Yeah, man, I just hope to get on your level one day. On that note, 6 months in the books, brother. We'll see y'all next week. Be good.